Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing Matlock Season 1, Episode 18, which is the season finale, 2-hour finale, so very exciting. Before I get into the review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channel, likes my videos, leaves me comments. I appreciate it so much. If you have any comments, you can leave them below. So getting into this, remember this is our 2-hour season finale. So there's definitely a lot in this episode, and it starts off right where it left it, which made me very happy, which was at the front door with Edwin and Alfie seeing Olympia and Maddie together. So Olympia is in Maddie's house looking over the crime board that she has. And I think Olympia is a little taken back that, she's done all this research. She's got their faces up there. But Maddie asks Olympia for help and, says, do you want your kids to know your mom as a hero while your dad is still in jail? Like, they kind of have this heart to heart. Maddie's like, look, I can make you, fall for this, or I can make you look like the hero, like you help me uncover it. But remember, Maddie tells Olympia Julian was the one who did it. So Olympia's like, yeah, and if I help you, then my kids will think I'm a hero, but I put their dad in prison. So, they kind of have this heart to heart. Now, Olympia, always wants to do the right thing. So I feel like Maddie's going to kind of get her on her side at some point. So they make a deal. They have to make sure it's Julian because Olympia doesn't think he did it. So he's like, look, if I can prove that Julian got a payout, to hide the documents, then I will help you because I can't go through my life with him and my kids knowing he did this. And Maddie's like, okay, you got 1 month to see, to prove it because Olympia now thinks Senior acted alone because she can't think that Julian did this, right? So that's when Maddie's like, okay, you got 1 month to prove to me that Senior acted alone because I think it was Julian. So then all of a sudden, Senior surprises Olympia with partner, which obviously means that Julian didn't get partner. I mean, it had to be one of the two, right? But when I saw them all happy about Olympia getting it, I was like, oh, poor Julian, right? Because this is his father. But Senior likes Olympia, how she kind of bended the rules. Because remember that last case, she kind of went against the firm, right? Because she represented the pregnant wife and the husband was powerful and had the clients. So she kind of had that fine line there. She thought the board was upset with her and then they turn around and make her partner. So, but, Senior kind of lays it on a little thick, like, okay, now that you're partner, you're responsible for what happens at the firm. And I think that was just like almost like a little jab, like, yeah, you bent the rules. I like the feistiness in you, but, now you're part of this. And then Sarah has a little side hustle. We kind of saw that in the last episode. Billy was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But she just wrote a cease and desist letter to help out somebody from a previous case, like his partner, just to kind of scare his partner, so to speak. So Sarah writes this letter, very very rough letter, kind of scary, as a cease and desist, gives him a card, saying that she's a lawyer, for legal advice. And Dino is the gentleman she's helping, calls and she freaks out and makes Billy go with her. They go down to the gym. Dino and his partner Rob own a gym. They get to the gym and he's kind of beat up a little bit, like he had just been in a fight, and you turn around and you see Rob and he's dead, like on the floor of the gym. So Sarah is freaking out. Billy's kind of freaking out, like, look, Dino's your client. He obviously just got into a scuffle, just got into a fight with him. He's dead. Like, you're going to try to represent him. You have to call Olympia, right? And Olympia's not picking up because she's talking to Jillian, and they're like, oh, kind of tells them, they have coffee. They kind of have a heart to heart, right? Because Olympia is trying to get the bank records to prove that Julian didn't get a payout, but she's got to kind of be sneaky about it. So she kind of talks to him, tries to get him to let his guard down. But it doesn't work. So, she has to find another way to get into the bank, or to see the records or the trust, right? Because Jillian says he bought the brownstone because his mom let him access the trust. And that's how, he paid for the brownstone. So we all think this is the timeline of the payout for hiding the documents. So that's kind of where they're going. Um, so Obviously, we have a little side case with Sarah and Billy and her client Dino, but they tell Olympia, well, first off, Sarah represents him, says, this is my card, and they go to arrest Dino, and he's like, I'm Dino's legal representation, right? So they finally get a hold of Olympia, and Olympia is livid, of course, but she goes to court because, she's like, look, we'll hand him off to the public defender. Like, you screwed up, but you don't have to take the case, right? So they go to court, and the judge basically says, you acted like his lawyer when he was getting arrested. You're a lawyer, you're going to take the case. And Olympia is trying to get it pushed off to the public defender to get Sarah off the hook. But the judge was like, you're in a nice law firm. You can afford to take on this case. You represented him before at at the crime scene. At the gym, you're going to represent him. And Olympia was like, and then the judge was like, no, not you, her. So Sarah has to speak because now Olympia was just going to take on the case and go with it. But no, the judge doesn't want to hear from Olympia, only Sarah. So this is kind of like Sarah's big case. So I kind of like that. I mean, obviously she's scared to death, but remember Maddie, a couple episodes ago, gave Sarah first chair to handle a case, and then was caught snooping around Billy's desk, and her excuse was, oh, you're the person in charge. So Sarah was really betrayed, by Maddie, and was really hurt by that. So Maddie feels a little responsible because one of the reasons why Sarah did the cease and desist letter and kind of took him on as a client, so to speak, she wanted experience. She wanted to, head a case. And Maddie felt a little guilty because she took that away from Sarah to cover up her snooping around Billy's office to find the pen that was the listening device. So, you kind of have that guilt that Maddie feels through all this. So she really wants to help Sarah because she feels kind of responsible for getting Sarah, anxious to have her own case. So you kind of see that too. And it was manslaughter. I think it's manslaughter 2 case, because they got into a fight, but it wasn't intentional. And since they weren't able to get the financials talking to Julian, Maddie suggests to Olympia to go through his mom. And, Maddie's like, go in another way. So she didn't want to, but she does. She has Julian's mom come over, and obviously this is a kid's grandmom, so no surprise there. They get to talking, and you kind of find out the mom is kind of forgetful, and Olympia starts talking about the brownstone. I remember when we bought it. Don't you remember you helped Julian get access to the trust so we could buy the brownstone? And her mom was like, did I? I don't remember, And so she was kind of wishy-washy, and I thought it was kind of odd. She's not married to Senior, right? They're divorced. And Senior never talks nice about his ex-wife. Which, I'm sure most people don't talk nice about their exes, but, I just got a weird feeling like if you're not making the money, Senior has all this money from the law firm. I don't know what his mom does, but she's kind of wishy-washy about lending your son a lot of money and access to a trust. So that was suspicious for me. It doesn't turn out to lead anywhere. So I guess that's just me going down a dead end, but I just thought it was odd how she was kind of forgetful. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe I did. Well, that's a lot of money. Maybe you're just seeing me coming from a background not having a lot of money growing up, but she really didn't give her any answers at all. But at least Olympia went down that road to try to find out. So when you go back to the case, Sarah's case, you find out that he died from a burst appendix, and Rob's wife Tina had cameras put in the gym, so you actually have footage of them fighting, and Dino hits him hard in the stomach, and so they're saying now it's manslaughter one because, you're a boxer, it's a gym. You hit him hard in the stomach. That's what burst the appendix. Like, this was intentional. You hit him hard. You knew where to hit him. So that was kind of surprising because we didn't see that coming. And like I said, you have video footage of it now. So, you also find out Tina, goes up on the stand and says, yeah, Rob was livid reading that letter. The letter is scary. And he got so upset after he read that letter, he threw up. So I remembered that because they talked a little bit about how Rob and Dina were best friends, or they were partners, and they never had any issues until the last 6 months, maybe the last year. I think they said 6 months. Rob signed with the supplement company, and Dino didn't want to, but Rob was pushing it on the clients. So that was one of the reasons why they argued a lot and why they kind of were in this fight financially too. The gym wasn't doing well. I guess Rob was trying to help financially with, joining in on the supplement company and kind of pushing it on the clients. Dino didn't like him pushing it on the clients. So I think he didn't want to sign on with the supplement company, but I think the way he was kind of pushing it let them argue. So when I heard that, and then I heard he threw up, right? I'm like, okay, I think they're too linked because I understand when you read something, you get so upset. People are like, oh, I'm so upset I could throw up. And I get it, the way the body works. But I didn't think he threw up because he read the letter. I think he threw up for something else. So we do find that too. Dino told him to stop with the supplement company. He didn't. And while this is happening, like kind of simultaneously with the case, you see Olympia come up with a plan. Okay, it didn't work with, the grandmom, with my mother-in-law. I'm going to go to the bank and you're going to come with me. And Maddie's like, well, that's bank fraud, but yeah, I'll come with you. So they kind of come up with this plan. And then they find out she has to go by herself. Like the person they want to see in the bank is going to be out or something. And they kind of had to go right away, like, oh, okay, I want to see Denise. I don't want to see this bank teller or this officer when I go. So she goes by herself. Maddie trusts her to go by herself. She goes, she looks at the paperwork, she looks at the trust, and he didn't get a payout for the brownstone. So, Olympia is so happy. She calls Maddie like, hey, I have all the documentation. I'm going to make photocopies for you. Jillian didn't get a payout. It wasn't him. So she's all like excited, right, at the bank. And she actually calls Maddie like on the spot and tells her. And Sarah goes to the gym at night and goes to the office. Like, I have to find some kind of paperwork, right? Because I find out about the supplements. Um, and there's one locked drawer. Sarah gets into it. She breaks her, or, broke her tooth, which is a funny little side story. But they find the paperwork in the office. So everybody goes to court to support Sarah on her first case, which I thought was great. She does great on opening statement. Like, Sarah really did great. And she's proving her case. And she does it with Tina on the stand because she kind of says, okay, this is what I found. Can you read this? And in the locked cabinet, apparently, when Rob started taking the supplements, he was sending emails to the supplement company. Hey, I'm taking your supplement. I'm taking it 3 times a day as recommended. I'm getting this symptoms. I'm getting these symptoms. And he's describing his symptoms. And then he says he stopped taking it and he started feeling better. And then he started taking them again. And once I started taking them, I felt even worse. So he's documenting this, to the supplement company. So you're finding out these supplements is what's, ripping him inside out. That's probably what made him throw up the day he got the letter. And they're finding out, right before you have a ruptured appendix, you throw up, and he threw up the morning of the fight. So they're finding out, like, hey, Dino didn't kill him by punching him in the stomach. He was a ticking time bomb because of these supplements. So the wife gets upset and cries because she didn't know he was doing the supplements. She kind of cries, and her and Dino hug, and they kind of mourn Rob together, right? Which I always like that, because when somebody dies, you're quick to blame somebody because you want to blame somebody. You lost somebody significant to you, and you want somebody to pay. You want justice. You want, somebody to be responsible for what they did, right? And I agree 100%. I always want justice. But when you're quick to blame somebody and they didn't do it, that person is close to them too. So, like, Dino, even though he fought with Dino the last 6 months over supplements and things like that, they were partners for 20 years. They were very good friends. So Dino really hasn't had a chance to mourn over Rob because he's had to jump into defensive mode because he's being charged for the murder of his friend. So I like at the end where they hugged, because I feel like Dino can finally now grieve for his partner, and Tina can grieve knowing that, his business partner and her friend didn't do it. So I like that they hugged at the end, because I think it's really sincere and it's really important that they grieve together. And like I said, Sarah did great. I was so proud of Sarah. She did so good, and everybody kind of said, "Hey, you did a good job." Um, and going back to the bank, right? So right before Olympia leaves the bank, she's already called Maddie. She's happy. She's like, and Denise walks in, anything else I can help you with? And Olympia's like, no, that's all I needed. And then right before she leaves the bank, Denise goes, oh, do you want to see about the safe deposit box? And Olympia's like, what? And, she's trying to not show the, surprise, and tells Denise, yeah, I'll see the safe deposit box. You're right. I definitely want to check that out. So she opens up the safe deposit box, and like her eyes get real big. And I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, it's not. And yup, it is the missing document. So I'm like, holy crap. So Julian was, he did hide the document. He didn't shred it, he didn't destroy it, he put it in a safe deposit box. This was 14 years ago, right? So I've always liked Julian. I've always wanted Olympia and Julian to get back together. Now, obviously, Julian cheated on Olympia with oh my gosh, I can't remember her name, but anyways, the human lie detector. So I know Julian cheated on Olympia, so that obviously, I did not like. At the same time, I still thought Julian was a good guy. When Olympia was feeling down and hurt by Senior, I felt like he was always comforting to Olympia because he understands, because Senior has always had kind of a rough relationship with Julian, right? Yeah, he never measures up to his dad. Passes him over for partner, his own son. So I know Julian had a rough childhood with Senior. So I kind of wanted him to be, I think he's a good guy, but I did not want him to be the culprit. When Olympia was like, no, it's not Julian. I'm going to prove to you Senior acted alone. I'm like, yes, please prove Senior acted alone. Because I haven't liked Senior since the very beginning. I'm just like, I don't like the way he operates. I don't like the way, he picks money over his clients. Like, I get it, but that's how you run your law firm, but I don't have to like it. I understand why you do it, but I don't have to like it. So I wanted it to be Senior acting alone. So when she found the documents, I was like, holy crap, what's going to happen next? And then she turns around and there's Julian. And Julian sees that she sees the documents because she's holding it, and she confronts him and he admits to it. So that kind of broke my heart because I didn't want it to be Julian. But at the same time, right, she's torn. She told Maddie, if it's Julian, I have to do the right thing. But she doesn't think it's Julian. Tells Maddie it's not, right? Because it's not in the trust. But she didn't tell Maddie about the safe deposit box. She didn't know about it at the time. So now Julian's kind of like begging and pleading with her, like, look, think of the twins, think of our life. I'm a different person. I just wanted to please my father. He told me to do it. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just, following orders, so to speak, as they say in the military. I'm just following orders. So you kind of feel for Julian in that moment. But at the same time, as I'm feeling for Julian while he's pleading to Olympia, I'm thinking about what Maddie says. Like, look, if they took opiates off the market, maybe that would have saved my daughter. So, and I know Olympia is probably thinking the same thing at that moment. So that is definitely a cliffhanger because, the show kind of ends from that scene. You don't see it again. Like, you just kind of see that scene end with Julian kind of pleading with Olympia, and Olympia just standing there stunned, basically holding the document. And Julian questioning her, like, who else knows? So then I'm like, okay, is she gonna tell Julian about Maddie, about, Emma Lynn, the Reddit poster? So I think it's going to be really interesting. The other cliffhanger right after that scene, the very last scene, well, I guess I should say, there is another, not really cliffhanger, but information. You see Billy talk to his ex, Claudia, and Claudia basically tells Billy, I'm pregnant with your child. So Billy finally gets up the nerve because Claudia and him broke up, but he's been seeing her on and off. So even though they broke up, Billy really hasn't let go of Claudia. And Sarah kind of gave him that confidence to finally say to Claudia, like, look, I know we're kind of off and on again, but I really think we need to separate permanently because this is too hard on us. And I think we both need to move on. And that's when Claudia's like, I'm pregnant with your child. So I wouldn't say that's a cliffhanger, but that was a surprise at the end. And you don't know what his reaction was. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now, the cliffhanger I was talking to a minute ago involves Maddie. So Olympia is supposed to go to Maddie's house with the information. She's late. The doorbell rings. Maddie thinks it's Olympia, and it's a young man, and it's Alfie's dad. So Alfie had reached out to the person he thinks is his dad, and now he's at the door. Maddie is kind of like stunned and surprised because she was expecting Olympia. So she says, okay, come in. And that was end of scene. So You have, for me, really two cliffhangers. You have the cliffhanger that, oh my gosh, Alfie's dad showed up at their doorstep and Maddie's allowing him in. So, what conversation are they going to have with, this man that possibly is Alfie's dad, right? And then what's the other cliffhanger? You have Julian and Olympia standing in a safe deposit room in a bank holding the documents, having that conversation. We can destroy them, nobody will know. Well, Olympia knows Maddie and everybody knows. So that's kind of the two cliffhangers, Alfie's dad and Olympia and Julian. But also, what is Billy going to do knowing that Claudia is now pregnant with his child? So I definitely think, I wasn't expecting that ending, especially with Claudia being pregnant with Billy. Um, so, I mean, it's definitely a couple of different cliffhangers. I'm very excited that they've been renewed for season two because we are going to get our answers. I'm curious on what they're going to do in season two, however, because this whole season one was about finding who hid the documents and exposing them. Well, the cliffhanger gave us the documents. We know it was Julian. He confessed. He told Olympia. So, like, what are they going to do in season two? Olympia's partner, Julian quit. He confronted his dad, like, look, you didn't make me partner. You don't appreciate me. I'm gone. And then Senior, being the kind of he is, was like, oh, well, you'll be back when you want money. Kind of like the I don't know, rude thing to say. So, it's definitely going to be interesting on where they go in season two. So, almost like season one, you kind of closed it with cliffhangers, but you answered the question on who was hiding the documents, what the documents were they destroyed? No, we have them in the safe deposit box. So I'm definitely curious on what's going to happen. I hope you guys liked the finale. I definitely enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to season two, which they say will, come on this fall. So if you enjoy the episode or you have any questions, you can leave them below and I will see you next time. Bye.